All right. Ready for me, Lise?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. While we have you all captive and you're all here, first, thank you for joining us. I just want to give a little reminder to all of our ILEA members out there that are watching. It's really important, especially at this time, that everybody goes to ileahub.com and click on your update to update any personal information as far as your contact numbers and email addresses. If you need any support getting into your account, email the find folks at info@ileahub.com and they'll help you get access. We know that there's been a lot of changes and not everybody has access to their work email right now. We trust that will all change very, very soon, but in the meantime, we'd love your contact information so we can keep in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. Greetings from Calgary. My name is Lisa Marks. I'm one of your ILEA International Board of Governors. That was just my colleague, Dustin, also one of your ILEA International Board of Governors. And we're joined today by a number of other Board of Governors virtually from their respective corners of the world. So thanks to them so much for joining. And to all of you. I think I'm looking at the count, 89 people and counting on a Friday afternoon. That's awesome, you guys. We've seen anywhere between this number and 300-400 on webinars in the last 3 weeks, which really has told us that right now there's a real need for community, even more so than ever before. And so, yeah, we've been through a whirlwind, haven't we? I know we're still in it, and I by no means, I was corrected so correctly a couple of days ago on the marketing conversation that we very much are still about to enter into the eye of the storm. And so I think that we're kicking off this series today, beginning of April, knowing that April, I think, is going to be bumpy. I think is very purposeful. So thanks for joining today. As we watched what happened in our industry the last couple of weeks and what is currently happening due to the impacts of COVID-19, and having heard from hundreds and hundreds of event profs from around the world, we, the Board of Governors, knew that we had to help. And so that really is what we do. We foster community. We wanted to not only bring you timely and good, strong educational content, so we knew we needed to mobilize a team to get the right kind of lawyer on a webinar and talk about insurance and talk about employee communications. That's really what a lot of businesses spent time doing in March. But we also really wanted to ensure that you, each of you, the whole person, felt supported. And so it was through a conversation about our own mental states. Like, the Board of Governors is made up of event profs. Like, we are all individuals going through our own challenges through all of this. So it was a conversation about our own mental state and emotional awareness right now as the Board of Governors that we came up with Clear Heads, Strong Minds. So this is a series. We will host this once a week. It will always be on a Friday afternoon, with the exception of next week, because next Friday is Good Friday. So we will allow everyone to get together on Thursday afternoon. But this is being built as a series because regardless of what phase we're in this whole big mess that we're living in right now, you are all still humans and people going through a life experience that is incredible. And so we wanted to create something that was consistent for you as people. And so while this conversation is built to be optimistic in nature, it was really important to our COVID, team, task team, and Angela as well, who we'll introduce in a second, that that it's not our intention to bring you together and to say, we know everyone has challenges right now, get over it, move on, come together, let's think positively. That just wouldn't work. We know that this is a challenging time, and it will be challenging for who knows how long, but certainly we're not over it yet. And so while we each are going through our own individual challenges, we're super deeply sensitive to that. So please know that while we position these as positive, even if you're feeling sad today, or you had a particularly hard day in your own business, or today you're feeling a high potentially, which would be, which is great. Come to these calls however you're feeling. Don't feel like you have to contribute a positive message if that's not how you're feeling today. But I think all we ask is that you come open-hearted and open-minded. That's it. So if you get a little glimmer of optimism out of this, that's great. But we're certainly here to ensure that you get something out of it. So join us for an hour every week starting today, and we ask you to not ignore the challenges, but we're asking you for the next hour, or I guess an hour minus 8 minutes, to put your business challenges and your worries on the shelf for an hour, and come be a part of this conversation, regardless of how you're feeling. So our intention with this series is to create a place where you can come and feel a bit of balance, a lot of focus on business and employees and revenue and dollars and the future. That's okay to be focusing on, because that's what has to be focused on. But right now we're giving you an opportunity to access some balance. This will be a healthy conversation about mental strength, mindfulness, tools, tips, how to develop new skill sets so you feel prepared, or more prepared in the weeks to come. We will layer in some gentle accountability systems. So if you come back week over week, you'll get to experience that, which is awesome, and give you a chance to focus on yourself for all the reasons I just mentioned. So please know that if you miss a session, that's okay. We've built in a mechanism to post sort of a wrap-up summary highlights blog on the website the following week. So early next week, look out for that. If you want to share it with anyone who missed this, that's great too. If you want to bring your friends, your family, your colleagues, your clients in the coming weeks, they can get caught up by checking out ileahub.com and visiting the COVID page. Couple of quick logistics here before we get going. As you can see, you've all been muted. If there is an opportunity or we call on someone specifically for whatever reason to speak up, please just unmute by hitting the mute unmute button. And please know that we are recording these for our archives. So while we welcome vulnerability and we encourage you to participate in whatever way feels right, just know we are recording. So why don't we kill this slide and just go to video, their page. Thanks to our friend Paige for joining us today. So before we get going on the content today and the conversation, we wanted to start with just a big exhale. I'm sure if you're feeling anything like I'm feeling, or like Dustin's been feeling, or a bunch of others I've been talking to, it's like your shoulders are up to your ears every day, and there's so much to think about and so much uncertainty, and that's okay. But we're here today to give you a chance to take a couple big breaths. So in order to do that properly, we tapped the shoulder of our friend Carol Dunsmore. Carol is one of the original founding members of ILEA Arizona, so a longtime friend of the association, and she also sits on the board currently of HSMAI Arizona. Carol is the owner and principal planner at The Next Great Event, a full-service conference management and event planning company headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm personally jealous because it's snowing in Calgary today. And her business is celebrating 14 years in June. So regardless of what's going on, Carol, congratulations, and that's certainly something to celebrate. So back in 2017, Carol also decided to pursue her other dream of becoming a certified yoga instructor, completed her 200-hour yoga teacher training at Spirit of Yoga in Tempe, Arizona. And so, Carol, we welcome you today. Why don't you take us through a couple minutes of breathing and focus?
Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not going to be anything too challenging, but first, just simply notice your own breath. Don't analyze it. Don't change it. Don't do anything. Just notice it. And feel free to close your eyes if that feels good to you. In another minute or so, I'm going to turn off my video too, just so you're not feeling like you have to watch me. Simply breathe in and out, in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Now, if it feels comfortable for you, let's add a tiny bit of intention with each breath. Inhale today. Exhale yesterday. Non-verbally to yourself, inhale today. Exhale yesterday. And just repeat that a few times to yourself in your own head. Inhale today. Exhale yesterday. If you're more of a linear thinker, I'll offer an alternative for you. You can count your breath instead. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. And you can repeat that either, they call it a box breathing or a square breathing. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. So as you wrap up that next exhale, I'm going to tell you that I just played a huge trick on you called body sensing. So you might notice that when you're focused on your breath, whether you're focusing on a mantra, an intention, or just counting, it's actually impossible for other thoughts to permeate. So if you want to consider taking these little breather breaks throughout your workday, it's really a great way to just kind of hit reset. I just turned my volume off on my phone, took all the way away all the distractions, and just let yourself do that for 3 to 5 minutes twice a day. Hopefully you'll notice a big positive difference.
Awesome. I'll bring us back here. Take a minute if you need it. Thank you, Carol. Really appreciate that. Please stay and enjoy the session, and we look forward to welcoming you in again. All right, let's move forward. So, yeah, I feel suddenly different right now. So I'll just say that. I invite you to recognize how you feel as well. So let's get started. So Clear Head, Strong Mind will be facilitated in partnership with Angela Braun, PMP, who's a longtime dear friend of mine, and is also a longtime supporter of ILEA. So Angela was formerly the chair of the Canadian affiliate, so ILEA Canada, as well as, of course, ILEA Calgary president in her time on the board. And so we're so grateful to have our good friend back with us today. So Angela is a certified leadership and performance coach. She works with creative visionaries to looking to take control of their lives and their careers, to take on the leadership roles that they were born for. She focuses on the leadership mindset and business processes required to achieve your ultimate lifestyle, one focused on the freedom to choose what's next. Like, don't we all need a little bit of that right now? Man, there's so many reasons why Angela is just such a great fit for this. So thank you so much for being here, Ange. Before getting her coaching certification and founding her business, Angela brings 20 plus years of experience working in large corporate. So specifically at WestJet, a national Canadian leader in corporate culture and brand loyalty. So Angela brings a wealth of corporate business knowledge, acumen, and experiences, and also has a big heart and is a certified coach. So for those 3 reasons alone, it's just a great combination of leadership and warmth. So Angela is currently serving on the board of ICF, the International Coaching Federation, and as I mentioned, has board experience in ILEA, both local Calgary as well as Canada and international. So I think without further ado, why don't you join me in welcoming Angela, and we'll kill the slide and let Angela take us away here.
Awesome. Can everybody hear me okay? Just a little bit of a wave? Awesome. First of all, I want to say thank you to Carol. Man, Carol, that was exactly what I needed. So I want to thank you for taking us through a few minutes of breathing, because I mean, these are some tough conversations and some, when we talk about well-being that we're about to enter into. And so I actually, quite frankly, needed a few minutes to just breathe into it myself. So thank you, Carol, for taking us through that. I also want to say thank you, Lisa and Dustin. And Lisa, I really want to reiterate the message that you had talked about earlier. There is a lot of empathy around the brevity of the situation here. And this is not about us saying, like, get over it, move on, not at all. This is really around recognizing that uncertainty is challenging, and it brings up a lot of emotion. It brings up emotions like fear and chaos and overwhelm, and that could be really hard. And so this time is really about being really kind to ourselves and showing a lot of self-compassion. You know, when we're in uncertain times, we kind of just have to stand in it, right? Like we're right in it, like we have to stand in it. But there's also a really great opportunity, to observe it. There's an opportunity to create some awareness around it, whether it's awareness of others or self-awareness. And there also is an opportunity to walk through it and look to the other side of possibility. And I got to tell you guys, I'm a coach, right? So my job is to support people who are stuck in situations and limiting beliefs and fear and uncertainty, and move them to the other side of that. And so the reason why, we wanted to really preface that at the beginning is because we are going to talk a little bit about possibility and opportunity. And we're also going to talk about mindset shift. And we're also going to talk about well-being and how to, protect ourselves and care for ourselves in uncertain times. I really struggled with whether I wanted to say this to you guys next. And, I had to talk to Lisa and Dustin about it. And they had said to me, go for it. You know this industry, you love this industry. And so thinking about this conversation and having 10 days to think about it, one of the things that really, came up for me is that, and probably has come up for you guys too, is there is a lot of uncertainty right now, right? There's uncertainty about business. There's uncertainty about the industry. And I guess what I really wanted to say to you guys, like, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. And I am certainly not in any way, shape, or form going to attempt to do that. But what I want to express to you guys is that what you do, it really, really matters. And as we take a look at this totally surreal experience that we're all in, I don't know if we've ever at a time in history experienced global isolation. But what we know for sure, especially all of you guys, I'm sure you can, appreciate this too, is human connection is more important than it ever was before. And so as we come out of isolation, and it will happen, we don't know when, we don't know how, but when it does and when it happens and when we move forward, I believe that what you do, what you all do, will matter more and not less. Because you create moments, you create memories, you bring people together, and it's really quite magical. And so I do really want you to ground into that. And I want you to come into this conversation with an open heart and an open mind. And let's take a look at how we can, traverse this journey together, and maybe what kinds of things that we can, put into our essential toolkit as we begin to move into recovery. And that might be a bit of a while, right? So I guess the first question I want to ask all of you is, thinking of the past, so not today, but thinking of the past, has anyone ever experienced a personal or professional crisis? So, maybe you've gone through a divorce or had a bad breakup. Maybe you've lost someone you loved. Maybe you've had a professional setback. So has anyone ever experienced that? Now you can put up your hand if you want to, you can nod, you don't have to do anything at all, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to put up my hand because it certainly has happened to me. Right? And so we're definitely seeing a lot of hands up here right now. So what we know is that we have all 100% successfully come to the other side of this. We've already done it. Now, the second question I have for you is, when you think of said crisis, the one that you're thinking about, the one that's in your mind right now, when you look back on it now, was there a personal insight or a learning or an opportunity that came out of that? Maybe not an opportunity, but something positive that came out of that. Can you think of one? Yeah. And so the possibility exists for that to happen through this as well. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how we deal with uncertainty today. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can put some practice into place to move into possibility and opportunity. So we're going to talk about mindset today. And I got to tell you, mindset can be a really kind of challenging thing to talk about. because it's really intangible, right? And so when I talk to my clients and we kind of go into this mindset work, I often use this analogy. So just bear with me a little bit. And so what I often use is sort of like physical wellness. And so it's not uncommon for people at the beginning of the year, New Year's resolutions, New Year's intentions, etc., to say, well, I want to lose like 10 pounds, or I want to have better health, or whatever the case is. And so when we do that, like, there's nobody here that's going to put a plan like that in place or have a goal like that in place, go to the gym, jump on the treadmill for an hour, come home, eat a salad, and then jump on the scale the next day and be totally blown away by the fact that you haven't lost 10 pounds, right? When we're looking at certain goals, we recognize that there is a consistency and a commitment and a dedication that needs to come into play. And I got to tell you, mindset is exactly the same way. It's a muscle, just like everything else. And that means that consistency, commitment, and dedication is also required. But it's super challenging. It's challenging because we can't see it. And so it's internal. And so we actually had a conversation about this, like, how are we going to create a space as we move forward weekly where you guys can really take a look and see if there's anything changing from a mindset space or a space internally within you. Now, at least I don't know if you had an opportunity to ask everyone to bring maybe a notebook or, a piece of paper and a pen, or no, that's okay.
Didn't, but why don't we do that now?
Okay. So if you have something next to you, you have a napkin, a piece of paper, a pen, a notebook, whatever you have handy, maybe we'll just, for those of you who want to participate, and I really, really hope that you do, maybe take a moment to grab that.
Or a whiteboard behind you, if you've got a big whiteboard, whatever you can bring back next week and the week after, even if, as Angela said, if it's a piece of paper that you're not using for anything else. I know that notebooks are, they've transitioned slowly but surely to digital, which is fine. Use whatever you know that you bring back week over week.
And Linda, I saw your note. That does not surprise me at all.
Awesome.
Okay. So maybe what we'll do here right now is whatever device that you have, just put the date at the top of it. And then maybe you can put a 1 on the left-hand side and a 10 on the right-hand side. And then we'll assume that 1 is not optimistic, not feeling good at all. And maybe 10 is feeling very optimistic, feeling very hopeful, etc. And so when you take a look at that scale, where do you feel at this moment right now? And we're not going to make this right or wrong. And you do not have to put this in the chat box. This is honestly just for you. Because what the idea is as we move forward week over week and different subject matter experts come to the table and we introduce different practices, we want you to be able to see for yourself how and like what kinds of changes could potentially happen in terms of well-being, best practice, and mindset shifts. Okay. It looks like most of you are done. So also what I'm going to share with you guys right now too is that, some of the practices I'm going to be talking about aren't necessarily new. You probably will have heard them before. But what we also know is sometimes the same message said in a different way by a different person at a different time can spark something. And so that's my hope that it does for you today. And then also it's a great place to capture some of these practices and create a commitment for yourself as we move forward in any way that feels good for you. So like the first thing I want to share with you is the shift, mindset shift number 1 is really around perspective and how we shift from like short-term thinking to long-term thinking. Now, when I say this, I want to be really clear. This is not about you must move into long-term thinking right now. You get to be wherever you are. But as we start to move forward, how can we start to shift into that perspective? And so I'll share with you, I'm going to share probably a lot of stories with you throughout this presentation, if that's okay with you. I'm going to come to the table with full vulnerability because I think this is a wonderful opportunity to share and, really focus on well-being as a community as a whole. But one of the things, that I'm doing, I have a mastermind partner. She's a coach, and we've been mastermind partners here for about 9 months. And so when this whole thing came to be, and we were trying to discover, how do we take that shift? Like, how do we slowly move our shift in a place of total uncertainty, and we have no idea what's going to happen? And one of the things that we asked ourselves were these 3 questions. When this is over, whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and we don't know. We don't know. But the questions we asked ourselves are, how do I want to feel? What do I want to accomplish? And who do I want to become? So I'm going to say that again. I'd like you to write them down if you're open to it. How do I want to feel? What do I want to accomplish? And who do I want to become? And I want you to think about that on a personal level, outside of just the professional level. Now, the reason why we incorporated this in, to our practice and, into our mastermind time together was really because right now, like straight up, we don't have any control over the future. All we can do is control ourselves. That's it. And so we thought to ourselves, this is like this surreal time in history. And when we look back at this time of history, what way did we grow within this space? And so just some food for thought for you as you kind of go through this. But as you're writing down these questions, here's a few other questions I'll throw out, and it's being recorded, but it might, spark some thought process for you. And that is, what strength of yours do you value the most? What moments are the most meaningful to you right now? What do you not have access to that you miss? And how will you value it differently? How grateful are you for your health? And what habits will you create or continue to incorporate? What things might you like to do and simply haven't had the time to do previously? Who are you turning to the most right now? And what kind of conversations are you having? In what ways have you been stepping up in service? So just some food for thought. And it's just a way to say, okay, it feels yucky, it feels a bit uncertain, my brain is going in a million different ways. What ways could I potentially look at? How do I want to be when I come out of this? And what controls can I put in place right now? Okay. All right, so I'm going to move to mindset shift number 2, which is really around resources. So it's how do we shift from the resources we don't have to the resources we do have? And so when we're in a space like this and it's so uncertain, I mean, our first instinct is to go straight to scarcity, like straight up. We've all experienced a lack of toilet paper here, right? So we're going to go straight to scarcity. And the antidote to scarcity is straight up gratitude. It's abundance, right? And when we look at abundance, it's all about gratitude. Now, when we talk about gratitude right now, this is not going to be anything new to you. You have all heard this a million times before. But there is such an opportunity to really expand it and lean into it right now. And so again, I'm going to share a story with you on some of the things that I do. And then I'm going to ask you to take a look at what are some of the things that you can do and how you might be able to incorporate this into a daily practice. When I was back in corporate and I first started, I guess really kind of owning the gratitude piece, especially when I was going through the coaching certification and really understood how important and powerful it was. what I would do is I would create a trigger for myself. And so I'd be driving down, you know, to the jet, and I'd be on McKnight, and I would take a left on McCall. And the moment I turned left on McCall, I would turn off the radio, and I would, you know, say out loud 3 things that I was grateful for. And I got to tell you, it totally shifted the way that I showed up at work and the way that I grounded myself into a place of abundance. Now, it has now since shifted. I still do that. I no longer commute to the jet. So I still do that practice here, like in my home when I start my day. But one of the other things that I also do, and I'll just throw it out there as ideas, and you're certainly welcome to throw in the chat box any ideas that you have too, is I just take a moment, 5 minutes at the end of the day in a notebook, similar to what you guys are doing, and I just write out all the things that I'm grateful for. And what's so crazy about this practice and what's so interesting about it is when we first start, it's maybe like 3 to 5 things. But as you start to explore it and as you start to write it out, whatever we focus on expands, right? And so before you know it, you're going to be filling pages and pages of it. And the things that you wouldn't normally consider are going to be there. So it's going to be, you know, a compliment. It's going to be a hug from a person. It's going to be hanging out with your pet. It's going to be laughing in a movie or whatever the case is. Now, I know some of these things can sound a little bit too, I don't want to call it woo-woo, but a little bit out there. There's a lot of tragedy going on. I get that. I understand that. I really do. Trust me, I have certainly experienced that myself. But I really, what's so interesting about gratitude and what's so interesting about mindset is that when you take a look at like sort of the neuroscience behind this, we literally have the ability to change the neural pathways in our brain. And gratitude actually has the ability to do that. It can literally change us from a scarcity, oh my God, kind of mindset into a place of potential opportunity and positivity when we are open to receiving and we take a look at abundance. So my question or my invitation or my suggestion or my thought process to you is recognizing that abundance could be really helpful for you right now, that it maybe only is going to take 5 minutes. It doesn't cost anything. It's really simple to do. What would you like your practice to look like? What could that look like? And what is your commitment level to yourself? Hi, Corinne. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on. I've got one more mindset shift I want to share with you today, and that is the mindset shift around resilience. So I'm going to go back and we're going to talk a little bit, like I use a lot of like physical fitness analogies. And so the analogy really around this is that, you know, in physical fitness, any trainer is going to tell you that in order to develop strength, you must encounter resistance. And so we're going to fall down and we got to figure out a way to get back up. And in that space of like falling down and having to get back up, like how do we sort of shift from that space of being down to being able to propel and move ourselves forward? I struggled with whether I wanted to share the story with you guys. I struggled with whether I wanted to talk about this, but you know, fear is a real thing right now. So how do we move from a place of fear into a place of possibility? Now, when we talk about fear, you know, one of the things I want to bring up is that there is no bad emotion. Like emotions are not good or bad. They are what they are. And so it's not really for us to judge an emotion as either good or bad. And the weird thing about emotions is that positive emotions, we have no problem. We have no problem like displaying that, expressing that, laughter, kindness, excitement, joy. Like it naturally comes out of us, right? Whereas things like fear and anger and anxiety, like we want to suppress that. The challenge is when we suppress any of our perceived negative emotions is that we don't actually suppress them. They stay there, and then they often come out at the most inopportune times. And so we have to create a space to be able to release that. And so, when I think about fear, and again, I want to be clear, it's not good, bad, or otherwise. It is what it is. But when we're displaying or we're worrying about or we're in that space of fear, sometimes we just got to deal with it head on, because fear, she's a crazy thing. She can be a bit of a drama queen. To be clear, that is not you. We're not saying you are. We're saying that fear can be. And so we can take this little sort of nugget or this piece, and it can expand right into the nth degree. And then we get stuck in that. And so I'm going to share a story with you. This was a story about fear that I had, when I left corporate and decided to start my own business. When I did, there was so much fear. And so I was so scared. I was terrified, actually. And I was so afraid of judgment, and I was so afraid of failure. And although I'm not afraid of judgment now, I'm still straight up afraid of failure, especially in this place. I want to share that with you. I'm feeling that too. But at the moment, I went from a place of, I'm about to start a business. Oh my God, what if it fails? I am not going to make any money. I am going to not be able to pay my bills. I am going to lose my house. I am going to have to live in my car. I am going to have to eat Ichiban. Oh my God, I don't have a stove. How am I going to cook Ichiban? I'm going to have to eat dry Ichiban. I don't even like Ichiban. And so I tell you this story not to poke fun at Ichiban. I tell you the story because you will take the space of, I've got this fear, and our brain, our reptilian brain, is going to go right to the other end, straight up. It's going to go right to that place. And what I'm saying to you is that is okay, and that we have to be able to do that. And so when we're with this, sort of, I guess I affectionately call her the drama queen of fear, we got to straight up hang out with her. We got to make sure that she feels heard. We got to make sure that she feels validated, and we've got to be able to walk her right through to the end state. And we got to deal with that end state because it's the only way to release it. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through a 4-step process and how we can move from fear, how we can live in fear, how we can own that fear, and how we have the possibility to turn it around. And so that first step really is around that space, right? It's about just own it. Take it to where it needs to go. Don't try and limit it. Take it all the way right to the end, to where that sort of, oh my gosh moment is going to be, kind of like the story that I shared with you. So I went from a place of I'm starting a business to I am now living in a car on a street somewhere and, hanging out with my fur baby who doesn't even acknowledge my existence, trying to figure out how I'm going to feed myself. And that literally is the place that I went to. And I'm certain that all of you are experiencing that to some level too. And so you got to just go there. Just go there and not make it right or wrong. The second thing that you want to do is that once you've kind of walked your drama queen through to the other end, and you've kind of dealt with where it needs to be, and you're looking at it, and you've dealt with it, and you're real with it, then you got to almost become a friend to it, right? So you want to just put on your realistic, supportive, pragmatic hat, become that friend, and then you got to say, okay, so what is the likelihood that this is actually going to happen? And so for me in this story, it was probably about 10%. I was well, maybe it's about 10%. It could be higher, but that's about where I landed at the time. And then the third step that you really want to take a look at is, what can I do? What is my contingency plan in this case? And so when you look at that, there is a number of things. And so to give you an example of what I was going through at the time, it was well, I guess I could sell my house. I could get a roommate. I could move in with my friend Leah, who lives down the street. I could move back to BC and live with my parents. I could get a marketing consultant. I could come up with a really great idea. I could form a powerful partnership or relationship. I could shift and pivot. Now, some of these things are good and some of these things are not. And it's not about our options being good or bad. It's about straight up options. And some of these options are an opportunity for creativity and brainstorming and opportunity. And some of them are just going to be straight up things that we don't like and we don't want to have, but they're there. The point is with the option exercise is that we're in a place of choice. And that's ultimately where we want to be. Because when we're in a place of choice, then we may not have control over the situation, but we certainly have control over ourselves. And we had a plan in place. And so the last step that I want to share with you is when you take a look at that fear model, how do you move? Like what's that last sort of piece is really around what would it look like if the best case scenario were to happen? And for me at the time, I was like, I will have, done something that I've always wanted to do. I will have been able to create something that's really meaningful to me. I'm going to have the opportunity to create transformational change. I'm going to be that person when I'm 90 on my rocking chair who will look back at this moment in life and recognize I don't regret anything because I took a leap of faith. And so the idea really around this fear model is that you go from a place of absolute anxiety and terror and you walk yourself through the model so that you can get to the other side of potential opportunity and possibility. It's not going to go perfect all the time, but it is a framework in which you can work in. And sometimes you might use it 2 or 3 times a day and sometimes you might not. But it is an option for you. And I got to tell you guys, I use it all the time. And it really makes a difference for me because it pulls me out of that space of like anxiety and stuckness. And so, although I don't have an exercise for you guys in this, I just really wanted to share the framework with you. And I also kind of want to leave you with a thought around that. And that thought really is, fear is contagious, but so is hope. And so what part of the model do you want to be on, right? And how can you get there? So that is the 3 sort of mindset practices that I wanted to share with you today. We kind of wanted to keep it short and sweet. I wanted to give you some nuggets without being overwhelming. We wanted to honor where you are. And we wanted to take this time for you guys to focus on you. This crisis will come to an end. I can promise you it will. I don't know when, but it isn't a question of if, it's a question of when, and that we don't know. But what we do know is that every single person on this call is a leader. Whether you have a team or not, you are. Because leadership is about influence. It actually is about how you show up in the world. And when recovery occurs, what we want from you, or for you, I should say, what I want for you, I know Lisa and Dustin want this for you. I know Eileen wants this for you too. We want you all to be able to move into a place of recovery from a powerful place, not from a place of exhaustion. And so how can you take care of yourselves today? How can you look after yourselves? How can you look after one another so that you are able to do that? When we take a look at like subject matter experts and authority figures, all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, all of the information, all of the messaging, and there's a lot of good and there's a lot of not so good, right? But one of the things, that seems to be a consistent out there is that in order to thrive, we have to be creative, we have to be innovative, we have to be critical thinkers, we have to be open to shifting and pivoting, we have to be agile. And I always get emotional when I do this. When I look at all of you guys, when I look at all of you, and you guys know I have a love affair with the event industry. I have loved you for a long time. So much so that it's 10 years later and you still can't get rid of me. But when I look at all of you, this is who you are, right? You are this. You are creative. You are innovative. It's who you are. It's inherently the strength that you have. And so I just know that if anybody can do this, it's you. And I'm so grateful to Lisa and Dustin for having me on this call. I'm super grateful for all of you for participating. And I really, really look forward to seeing you again And I hope that we can take this journey together, and I hope you stay safe. I hope you protect yourself. I hope you stay strong. And we're really looking forward to seeing what really amazing shifts can come out of this. So thank you. Dustin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. We're not done with you just yet, so maybe hang tight. If anybody has any quick questions for Angela, feel free to throw those into the chat box. And while we're waiting for those, Ange, with the practices that everybody wrote down today, how often should they be going back to them? How often should they be looking at them? Is this a every morning, every night? Is this a once a week? What's a best practice for everybody that's on this call today?
Yeah, I mean, gratitude, personally, I think do it daily. It takes 5 minutes. It's going to give you an instant boost. It's going to make you feel good in the moment. And if that moment feels good for 5 minutes, I say there's no downside to this. So go ahead and do it. And again, like I said, it's a really amazing thing that happens with gratitude. And I know a lot of you have already put it into practice for sure. And that's really around like what we focus on expands. And so when you start to practice gratitude, you're going to see more and more and more and more good. And right now that we're bombarded with not so good things, right? And so I would definitely say gratitude, do it daily, come up with a practice, create a trigger or a pattern or a habit for yourself, and then start to deploy that and watch how that can actually change and shift the way that you feel about things. When you kind of take a look at the shifting of perspective, that is not an overnight thing, guys. Like it's not, and it's going to take a while. And so it's more like in this conversation right now, just some thought process around what that could look like, what it might look like. And maybe next week, you might have a thought around that. And maybe the week after, you might put some plans or goals or thoughts or whatever you want to do around that. And maybe the week after that, you'll decide to get an accountability partner and you'll start to share with each other. So I would say that the perspective shift is really based on someone's comfort level. It's just more of a thought process. It is definitely longer term thinking. I would say gratitude, do it daily. It's simple, it's easy, it doesn't cost you anything. It's an instant feel good hit. And as it relates to fear, you got to deal with that in the moment. That might be something that you look at 3, 4, 5 times a day. It might be something once a week. I just wanted to offer you a formula that I personally have found really, really helpful, and a formula that I've used with clients when we're right gripped in the midst of fear at the time.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. And I think you, in all of that, you answered some questions from others as well. So I think we're going to wrap up there. Maybe Paige, I'll get you to just throw the next slide up. So we know that everybody is in a different state of crisis or has a different challenge in front of them. It's really important that you're keeping tabs on your own mental health. It's really important that you understand how you're feeling and what you need to get through this. We've put some links up on the screen here of some organizations in your area that can be of help to you. And then obviously an extension of this is make sure you're staying connected with somebody. Make sure that you are sharing what you're going through with somebody that you trust to pace along with you. And then in the same respect, make sure you're reaching out to those that you know need a helping hand. Make sure you're reaching out to those that can use a shoulder or an ear, or there's some way that we can continue to help each other. This is going to be a hard ride for a lot of us. And I think we as event profs are in the most amazing position because we have this great community of people around us. And there's a lot of people on this call that I recognize that I can rely on, and make sure that you're keeping your mind nice and strong as we go through this. Lisa, take it away. You're muted.
Thanks for that, Dustin, and thank you, Angela. Yeah, thank you for that. Personally, for me, I've got now some great focus on some things to think about over the weekend. So thank you for being here, Ange. And as we've said, throughout all of this today and in the last couple of days of communications, that this is a series. Today is not a single standalone session. So Angela will come back next week with I'm not sure exactly what, but with, I know, a different perspective, or going to another layer of all of this, or perhaps cracking open another nugget over here. And so we'll spend the hour together going through a different conversation, but it'll feel probably a lot like you felt today. And we ask you to bring your notebook or your piece of paper or your iPad or whatever it is that you wrote on today. We'd love to go back and check on how you felt this time last week, and then allow us to measure, or give you a chance to measure yourself on how you feel in the moment next week and the week after and the week after that. And let's just use that as a tool to be really curious about how we're feeling, how we're doing, and maybe use it as an opportunity to speak up if there's anything that you need from us that we're not necessarily paying attention to. As we close out here, you can either listen to me or listen through one ear or not, but would love for you to just head into the chat box and drop in a word of optimism, or even if you're just feeling neutral right now, why don't you drop in a word into the chat box on how you're feeling? It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a big platitude. It doesn't have to be falsified optimism, but why don't you tell us how you're feeling right now, and then I'll carry us forward here. So Paige, if you could just slide forward to the next slide. Next week, guys, we will bring Angela back. And so ILEA will host Clear Head, Strong Mind next week, Thursday. Same time, same channel, just a different date, because Friday is Good Friday. So please join us. We are asking everyone to pre-register now. I understand Zoom has had some challenges with being Zoom bombed, so we'd love to just pre-register everyone and ensure that we're safe and sound. So please go on to ileahub.com and pre-register. It takes 20 seconds or less. And then just a reminder, guys, we continuously update each day, overnight, over the weekend, our resources page. We're going to go in and do some reorganizing of it, because it actually is, there's so much information on there, but continue to check it out. That's where we post all of our webinars on how to log on, and also recordings after the fact. So check it out, hop onto my community if you're an ILEA member, and get into the Facebook group if you're on social media. And last but not least, a quick reminder, we wouldn't be a business if we didn't ask you to do this. Please go into ileahub.com and click log on, or log in, sorry. And the first call to action will just be asking you to update your information. I know there's been a lot of change in the marketplace, so we'd love to know how to stay in touch with you and be supportive. So thank you again to Angela for being here, and to Carol for kicking off our session. I can't wait for next week. And thank you all for being here. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.